Good evening. Is CISPA really so bad for the average user? What do you think about it all? I mean, if you do nothing wrong, what has anyone got to worry about?
Well, this is a common attitude in the discussion around privacy. Effectively, if you've got nothing to hide, you shouldn't be worried about passing over your private information. And I actually think that's a really damaging attitude. We, as citizens, have a right to hold back information from the state and from government snoopers, as you correctly call them. So I think this actually portrays what's underlying a lot of anti-privacy legislation across the world, not just online, but also offline. This attitude that being able to hold your personal information is no longer important, which it is.
But boy, so much of it has been making the headlines lately, hasn't it? We've seen so much of this web regulating, lawmaking attempts, SOPA, PIPA, CISPA now. Why is it all coming at once, or appearing to come at once anyway, do you think? What's behind it all?
Well, it's important actually to distinguish CISPA from the rest of them, because this is not about intellectual property. This is an act about something far more nebulous. It's about protecting cyber security. And by the way, no one really knows what cyber security actually means, which makes it a far more dangerous act. It's effectively giving the American government significant powers to inspect and to snoop, to investigate concerns which no one has really defined. And that's what a lot of the campaigners around this act have pointed out, that these terms are fundamentally ill-defined and nebulous. That actually makes it a more dangerous piece of legislation than those that have gone before it.
Our team was at the forefront of talking about ACTA, that Anti-Piracy Trade Act, and reporting how thousands of Europeans came out against it. What can they do, though, about CISPA? It's a US law, granted, but it could still reach them in Europe and anywhere else around the world if they use, for instance, Google.
Well, that's absolutely right, but that also underplays the role that the British government specifically have played in doing much the same in lawmaking over here. We know that earlier this year the coalition government in the United Kingdom announced plans very, very similar to what's being proposed in CISPA now, the power to effectively intercept and read private communications from the web. So you're absolutely right that CISPA does affect an international audience, but it almost doesn't need that, because governments, especially in the United Kingdom, are sharing in that impulse to effectively interfere with our private internet communication. It's an extremely worrying global trend.
We were talking there about cybersecurity being a nebulous thing, difficult to pin down. It is a concern, though, isn't it? I mean, a lot of sensitive information is online these days. Isn't it time to have some more tightened up laws that can police it before it gets out of hand?
Well, that's the wrong focus. What we should be discussing is our right to retain information. Sure, there may be some, spotty jihadi sympathisers out there who may want to one day come and, infiltrate our internet security. I mean, to be honest, I think these spotty jihadists exist more in the minds of Western governments than they do anywhere in reality. Can anyone actually name a significant act of cyber terrorism that has happened in the West ever? No, because it never has done. It's an imagined threat, and it's an imagined threat which now threatens our freedom online and threatens our experience of the internet. So the fact that this legislation is effectively being introduced in response to an imagined threat, actually adds to the kind of suspicion and danger around it. If I could just add, I don't think this is about internet security. I think it's about national security generally. I think this act is more likely to be used to control and monitor efforts to organise terrorist attacks offline. Now, the danger with that is that in America specifically, we've recently had arrests of individuals for encouraging Al-Qaeda sympathies. Now, that used to not be possible under the American legal system because of the First Amendment. And because of these recent cases, there's a radical reinterpretation underway of the First Amendment and, more broadly, free speech's position in American society. So I don't think we should be concerned about that small minority who might, try and shut down MasterCard for another half an hour. We should be concerned about the American government's will and drive to control not just our freedom online, but our freedom to publish ideas more widely.
Luke, thanks for putting into context for us. Luke Samuel, the political commentator and author for the Spiked online magazine. Much appreciated.